such a pleasure to be moderating this beautiful little panel here. Lots of history sitting here.
Yeah.
Some old friends and a new friend. Yeah. So we're here to talk about complexities of music sampling. We've been talking about, I mean, we're in sync, right, for this RVRB. And we want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges in terms of the legalities of sampling music, some of the things that we need to be aware of. We keep hearing this term, work for hire. Does that apply to us in our Trinidadian and Tobagonian context? How do we deal with that when we're engaging with international people? How does that work for us when we're looking to get our songs out there in terms of sync? So just yesterday, there was an opening at the WIPO office, WIPO organization, and they're having all their assembly meetings. And the Botswana president mentioned that the importance for IP in developing countries. In an increasingly knowledge-driven world, IP, intellectual property, has emerged as a catalyst for innovation, economic growth, and progress. While often viewed through the lens of developed nations, it is imperative that we recognize the significance of IP in the developing world, particularly in Africa, and I will add, in the Caribbean. Our continent, or archipelago, with its vast potential and youthful population, stands poised to leverage intellectual property rights to foster sustainable development and achieve socio-economic advancement. We are rich in our history, in our culture, and we have the entire future ahead of us. We have a lot of back catalog that we could use, and I want to maybe start the conversation off in that way. What are some of the things that you'll think we can do? Or maybe we should start off with debunking some myths. So I'll start off with the myth of the work for hire in a Trinidadian and Tobagonian context, just so that we understand. Work for hire is essentially, you hire a session musician, a background vocalist, they're coming in to do something on your track and they leave, right? That context exists in the US law and perhaps in other territories. In Trinidad and Tobago, we don't have that. Does not exist. Yeah? So any work that you do as a session musician, background vocalist, etc., there is copyright that belongs to you, whether that resides in copyright when you're doing it or expressing it. Let's say if you're creating that bass riff or arranging the background vocals, there's copyright in that. And then when you get to the sound recording, there's neighboring rights in that. And in order for the owner of the song, the producer, the owner of the masters, to be able to work with those rights, there needs to be a clearance, there needs to be an assignment. So that needs to be dealt with. And that's why we're talking about documenting in the studio session. So with your split sheets, that would be dealt with, right? So debunked. And then there's also the myth of sampling. I could take 8 bars and it's okay. I don't have to ask for permission. Let me ask the panel. Is that true?
Yeah.
How does sampling work?
How sampling works is this, basically. Very simple. If it doesn't belong to you, ask permission.
Did you hear that?
If you don't ask permission, your next stop is a lawyer's office. Are you not hearing me now?
I think he needs to repeat that.
Okay, sorry.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Microphone was on the other side. If it doesn't belong to you, don't use it, or you ask permission. That is basic rule. If you use or you sample without asking permission, your next stop should be a lawyer's office for your defense. I think I must have been one of the first samplers in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm one of the oldest people in the room besides John Arnold. But I was sampling myself because I was sampling in the days of analog tape. Because I interacted with a couple of people who were working actually from outer London who gave me some crazy ideas, and I started to mess with since in the days of the late 70s. So I was always aware of situations like that. And then through the years, I became kind of pivot around some major lawsuit cases. I was not the sampler or the samplee, but because of the knowledge and the situation I was in, I became a part of the legal process. And I think Jaron was also the same thing too. But the bottom line is this: if it does not belong to you, do not use it. If you hear something that you want to use in your recording but belongs to somebody else, and even if you can't get permission, there are ways you have to ask yourself, why do you want to use that sample? Is it because of the sound? Is it because of the groove? Whatever it is. And if you're good enough, you could recreate what you want within a legal framework. So we could always get into that later on. But the bottom line is, if it's not yours, ask permission or just don't use it. Simple.
Yeah. Femi, do you want to add some do's and don'ts when it comes to sampling?
I suppose, like has been said, you can sample what you want as long as you get permission. Yep. There's no do's and don'ts in a way. It's like, like the key is to get permission. And I just feel like in people don't, someone saying to you, yeah, you can just use it. The artist saying to you, you can just use it. It's not good enough. Don't trust the artists. They're liars. Yeah, because they always think they own their music, right? They're like, yeah, I own it. It's fine. Like, you've got my permission. Like, and then you dig deeper, and it turns out someone somewhere, like not even always a record label. It's just like could be a random person one day that borrowed their money and they decided to sign over all the rights there. It's just someone somewhere owns the rights. So I think that's why I think the metadata thing is important as well, because actually it's important to see who actually owns literally in the UK there's we have the PRS. I don't know what we've got what exists here, but there's the PRS is the Performing Rights Society. And what they've got is a database. They've got a database. And so I can go into this database when I'm trying to use songs in films. PPL have one as well, which is on the master side, right? So you've got these two databases, type into it, literally the name of any song, and I get the name of the own. And I was really shocked when I made a documentary last year called The Evolution of Black British Music. And I was really shocked by how many people that I thought were independent, owned all their rights and all of that stuff, just didn't. And so I think always dig deeper. It's not always just the artist that can give you that permission. Sometimes it's the manager, sometimes the label, sometimes it's a random man in the middle of nowhere somewhere.
All right. Okay, thank you for that. And Jaron, I want you to speak to me a little bit about when we're talking about sampling and getting these rights cleared. It's a legal question.
Yeah.
So can I just go to any attorney? Will they be able to help me walk through?
That's a good question, Dionne. Because, as you very well know, we were in the middle of a lot of lawsuits. I mean, on the receiving side, that is, with people taking our music illegally. But there's a thin line. There's something called fair use, right? And according to where that lawsuit or that recording was done, you might have a challenge in court with the same people who took your music and sampled it without your permission, right? If you're in Nashville, because let's go back to where this thing started. 1972, a fellow named Gilbert O'Sullivan created a song in the UK named Alone Again.
Naturally.
Yeah. Right? Bismarcky took this song in the hip-hop era in 1989, 1990. Right? Gilbert O'Sullivan said he's not going for that, carried him to court in Manhattan, and won. Bismarcky took the hook, the beat, everything. Right? Made a nice hip-hop classic out of it. But he had to pay. And back then, the judge, Kevin Duffy, said, he just find that people taking people's music and using it, they're messing it up, they're going in different directions with classics. You know? So he awarded O'Sullivan 1.7 million back in 1993. That was the first case that went to court to establish a precedent on sampling. All right? Now, Madonna did Vogue, took the whole song, all right? Went to #1. They carried her to court. She won because of where the case was tried. So we have to know the law. Hence the reason why Dionne asks, which type of attorney would you hire to handle this? We hired Drummond for a case with Denise Belfon and put you back in it when I was representing that situation. Drummond was the one successful in suing Miley Cyrus for Flower Gun. And you know that case, Flower Gun won so much money they can't even disclose it. Right? And they won that case in Nashville. So you have to know where you're recording your music, because you record your music in California and they take you to court in California, you just very well might lose. You might lose. You record that music in Nashville and you carry them to court in Nashville, you are going to definitely win. So your management, your structure, your publishers, they have to know what they are doing, right? This music game is not a luck and chance thing. You have to plan it carefully. TNT Music Company, they brought a lot of experts here to tell you how to plan your next move properly, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about, thank you for that. So we're talking about seeking the permission, right? Now remember, we're artists and we're sensitive, right? We're sensitive about our stuff. So even though we may not want you to, we may not say pay X million dollars, the fact that you did not ask and went ahead could hurt us so badly that any potential interest we may have had, out the door, because you're disrespectful. Yeah? So, obtaining proper licenses and permissions. What are some of these things, or some of the, tell us maybe some of the things that you might have had to go through in getting these permissions. Maybe what was your easiest and what was your hardest
Can
experience?
I say something first?
Sure.
There are different levels of usage, number one.
Yes.
All right, I'll give you one extreme. A situation where actually I sat on a front porch and I witnessed it myself. Late Ralph McDonald, Grammy guy. Ralph used to come here every carnival and play with Despers. Ralph was part of the team that wrote and produced Just the Two of Us. And I remember liming on the front porch, a porch with Ralph, and a song came up. Not the original Just the Two of Us, Will Smith. Will Smith basically took the track. And he got a hit. And so I watched Ralph, we both heard it. I remember Ralph picking up the phone, and I realized he was talking to his lawyer out in New York. And it's basically his lawyer said, just hang tough. It's not big enough yet.
Wait.
Right?
Wait.
So, Ralph was due to go back up the next week to work. He said, I just got a vacation for the next 2 months. So he actually stayed here for a while longer. Eventually, he didn't hold out maybe as long as his lawyer told him to, because what happened is Will was in an interview, I think, with his son, and the song, I think, I just got to #1. And he was talking about going to do the album. And Ralph said, I had enough. And basically, you notice Will hasn't done an album. All right. It just quietly disappeared into the sunset. So that is basically taking a whole track. And then I was also in the middle of a situation where, all right, I'll call the song Who Let the Dogs Out with Ann Slim. And it wasn't the whole track. I think they just used a sample of it for a hip-hop sample. But then again, you can get yourself caught in, especially when guys are doing rhythms these days, where you have an artist is on a rhythm, on a piece of music, and 3, 4 artists on. Sometimes I'm starting to realize guys just pulling stuff off of YouTube, pulling it off the net and doing tracks, and they think it's demos. And if a song accidentally becomes a hit, somebody's in the wings waiting for that song to be a bigger hit, to take everything from you and what you don't have. So be very careful of that.
Yeah. So that's one of the pitfalls of the potential landmine of borrowing, right? We know you have to ask for permission first. And there was another case, finally decided, well, back in May 2019, that would have been the Verve's with the Rolling Stone sample. So they let it run for years and years and years, and yeah.
But we were also in
Yes.
the middle of that piece of music with Shell
That's
Shock.
right, with you see Shell Shock through
Yeah.
the rituals.
Yeah, we
Bittersweet
around it all.
symphony, indeed. Right, we don't want the bittersweet. We want the sweetness alone. Thank you very much. Okay, so we touched on fair use. Does everyone in here understand what fair use is, or fair dealing as it's called in our Copyright Act? Hands up, yes? Does everyone understand? Okay, hands up if...
I don't understand.
Okay. Okay, so fair dealing. So that we understand what we're talking about, right? So fair dealing or fair use, as it is in the US, fair dealing in our act, it's actually a defense for copyright infringement. It's where you can defend yourself for using someone's copyright without their permission or without remuneration, based on certain characteristics or types of use being present. So for instance, for quotations, news, for critique, etc., you can utilize somebody's work, copyrighted work, without their permission or without having to give them any economic remuneration. Yeah, so that's fair dealing or fair use. So it has to be fair, and of course there are 4 parameters that they would look at in terms of the length of the use, the type of the use, you know, whether it was for commercial benefit, etc. And they will make a determination, they being the neutral third party, i.e. the court, right, will make a determination on whether or not your use was fair use or fair dealing, and therefore defending you from infringing somebody's copyright. Yeah? Okay. Boom, bang. I want to ask now about...
Well, you can't really fair deal a sample. So if you're making a song that you're intending to commercially exploit, then you can't really fair deal a sample. You can really fair dealing is only applicable when you're looking at, like, you know, sort of making, in a way, it's my industry, where you're making content that reflects on a piece of work, and even then the extent to which you can do that is limited. And so, you know, like I said, I made a documentary that was like looking at Black British music for over 35 years. And I thought we could fair deal the whole thing. Our lawyer said, nope. Like, and I had to pay for every single piece of music in that documentary, and it took me a year to clear all the music. So I kept pushing the delivery of the documentary to the TV channel, because it was like, I had to go and find a man in the middle of nowhere who had the rights to the song that I wanted to use.
That's right.
Like, for like literally every song, there was one song I had to take it out, because there was a person that owned like 10% of the publishing had passed away, and we couldn't find their estate. We didn't know who owned the rights, so we just had to take it out. And so in a way, it's like, when you're commercially exploiting something, it's difficult to argue that you can fair deal.
Very, very difficult, right? And so that's why I started off by saying that sampling is a myth, the 30, the 8 bars, the 30-second, whatever it is. It does not exist.
No, but the thing is,
Right.
again, I've been in the business long enough to where it came from 8 bars to 4 bars to 2 bars, then 1 bar, and then sounds like, then the one of the most intricate cases actually was the Marvin Gaye estate with Pharrell.
Pharrell as well.
Blade Lines and Robin
Thicke.
Blade Lines.
Where actually the Marvin Gaye estate, they lost the case the first time, went back to court, but how they won the second time was on the manuscript score of the percussion pattern. Yeah, in other words, it had to be scored, musically scored manuscript, and that is where they found the similarity. I mean, the exact similarity. It went to that depth. Now, that is where we are at now. But when I say now, I always like to think now in the music industry, entertainment industry, we are already a year or 2 years behind. So if you want to really deal in the now, let's talk AI.
Thank you.
So with AI now, without even going anywhere, I can stay in my studio now and go into an intricate piece of music and pull out the bass by itself, the drums, anything I want. And then I could then take what we call, with CUT has the technology saying of a fingerprinting. So I can take a piece of a sample from inside of an intricate piece of music and fingerprint it back to the original and prove this is my riff, this is my piece of music. So in the, like say 10, 15 years ago, I've seen other producers, especially those who specialize using MPC, used to go and vinyl and pull this out. I know plenty hits here have that. But guys used to pull out, and a lot of the #1 hits here are from vinyl and from stuff that I know I produced maybe 15 years before. And then I hear it inside. No, you cannot do that, because with AI technology, I can go into the track, pull out my sample, and play back my original sample in a court and prove they're one and the same. So just be very careful, guys.
Right. And as you actually mentioned as you went into that area of AI, I wanted to get your feelings, each of you, on TikTok's Ripple. What is that going to do for the music industry? Ripple is TikTok's, well, I think it's in beta now. Basically, it's AI to help you create music. So you put in and it'll finish it for you. What do you feel about that?
Oh, there's too much AI about the place now. No need TikTok. I live in the space of AI right now.
Yeah.
Again, like, I'm the oldest in the room, and if I'm using it, imagine the next generation and the next generation. It's just another tool of the trade. I mean.
Another tool.
But isn't AI a tricky tool right now? Because isn't the programs that are composing and now arranging your stuff for you?
Yes. All right, there are different spaces of AI. No, I use AI mainly for tech. So in other words, right, in the analog days, so like we were in Amara Studios, wherever, right, in the SSL room or the Neve room. If I'm going to do a major mix, I will have like an assistant engineer set up the mix, and then I will walk in and do final mix kind of situation. No, I don't have to hire an assistant. AI does that for me, digitally. It will set up my mix, and then, all right, so I will do all my plugins, run my AI, go make a cup of coffee. By the time I come, AI has set up my mix for me, and I'm ready to start to work now.
Right.
All right, that's where it's reached technically on that side. If I want a bass drum or a bass or something is giving me trouble, a vocal, some of my plugins, analyze, AI will EQ, compress, give me a starting point to work with. 75% of the time, I almost don't have even to touch it after that.
Wow.
Because AI does that for me.
Yeah.
And is in development. As a matter of fact, I just got notification today, one of my AI things, I'm up to upgrade. That means they're constantly developing. So that is technical. Musically, there's so many different platforms and sites. What is happening now is the AI analyzes composers. So they're going as far back as analyzing Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, the jazz greats, analyzing all forms of music. So when you put your and you want something to finish, because they analyze thousands, hundreds of thousands of pieces of music. And sometimes you might have a choice. I don't know which platform, how far they reach right now. But you have a choice of what genre of music you want to go into, how complex you want to go into, because I can also do that musically chord-wise. So before melody, as a producer, and sometimes your brain frozen, but you have to get something done for tomorrow, like an ad or a piece of music, and you're just brain tired. So, Pancha and I want something in the key of A flat. 4 chords, this kind of mood, jazz, whatever the case might be. In 10 minutes, I have a piece of music, chord progression-wise, and I could start to build. So AI is used at different levels. But then you start to go into area of, if AI creates something that you had a hit on 10 years ago, and it's that close, who are you going to sue?
That's my point.
No, but because the thing about AI, right, it's from my understanding, it's large language modeling. That's what it's built on, right? Which means it just goes through everything that exists already and then uses that to create what you ask it to do, right? But what it can't do is like make something without all of that information that already exists. So in a way, you can use it to create a mix because like it knows like, different types of mixes that already exist, right? And then you could use it to, for me, like the best way that everyone I know that's using it is that actually it's part of the process. So you use AI to either finish the process
or to start
the process. But it doesn't, there's a human touch that the AI cannot do, like, which is like, actually, we humans, we create and innovate and recreate on top of creation and do that. And every so often, someone gets a fresh idea that no one else has ever thought of before. Every so often. Not that often because, as they say, no idea is original, right? And so AI, in a way, is prime example of that way. It's like actually, there's a machine that knows more than us. That has scoured everything that exists and can then feed into what we want to do. But then in that instance, like you said, who do you sue? Well, we're going to have to work that out in the future, right?
No, but what I would advise though, what I would advise, because I believe this is a room of creatives here. The discussion has been with AI especially that, people, we've opened a Pandora's box and people are scared for their jobs. And don't be scared, man. It's another tool, it's something else to work with. But what you should not do is never, ever give up your creativity and let AI replace it, right? Because AI you'll be just in a void of nothingness. Because all this was built on creativity to start with.
That's right.
So for instance, again, through, like say, the last 10, 15 years, I've noticed some young people want to be producers or what the case might be, and they don't put in the work. In other words, last week they were selling nuts on Independence Square. This weekend they want to be the #1 producer. So they buy a little laptop, in a bedroom, a microphone, and they feel they are producers. You can press a knob. That is not a problem. There's no challenge there. Creativity and the tech creativity is where is the challenge. In other words, educate yourself and develop your skill. Because no matter what AI, what level it is, there's nothing, absolutely nothing to replace the human creative spirit. Nothing.
Amen. Amen. And I'll say there as well, we have a little ways yet before AI can legally be considered a person. And so far, in most jurisdictions of the world, in order to be an author of a copyrighted work, you need to be a person. Yeah? So.
But what about the creator of the code?
You said that, we were speaking that before. Thank you, John, for mentioning that. So he did ask, so the person who's created the code that the AI is running on, are they not actually a creator as well? Question?
If you use the program to assist your process, do they now have any kind of case?
They can't,
They don't own
because,
it.
sorry,
Because it's open source, right? Or like you paid for the software.
or you've licensed
you
the
pay your
software
license, yeah.
So it's
through
not,
the purchase.
Yeah.
it's like using Cubase or any
It's like-
computer software.
It would be
So for
as-
instance, Isotope has a whole suite of AI for mixing and whatever case might be. If you have a #1 hit using Isotope software, they can't come and claim a piece of your
Yeah.
action because of that.
So all our auto-tune artists, the person who invented auto-tune doesn't have a say.
I mean, that's half
They
the
don't
world
own,
right now.
right? I'm just saying.
That's like
but,
all the artists.
You know, I'm just saying,
Oh,
right?
that's another example. That's another example. Auto-tune. All right. One second.
One
Auto-tune.
second.
Auto-tune is somewhat like halfway in between AI and stuff like that. Without the human creative voice or without you, auto-tune is non-existent.
Redundant.
It's void. Go ahead.
Make the note with AI. AI is open source, so all the different agencies or people who have AI technology came from one source, which is a free source, and they can now develop, even the other artists can develop an AI to work with your stuff, where you can now charge people for your idea off of that original idea. Boom.
So there's open source, there's Creative Commons, there's copyleft. Do some research into those things
Well,
and
actually,
understand how you can work
that
stuff.
is the kind of,
Yeah.
in tech, that is the kind of war going on between
Yeah.
open source. Where
Yeah.
people don't like Apple and Mac and, you know. So that's where the war is right now. Just stay out of that war.
Just stay creative.
Yes. Question.
I was looking for a timer.
What was the situation with Ed Sheeran this year? Remember when he said he'd give up writing? It was
The Nova Marvin Gaye song.
Oh, yeah, with Marvin Gaye's estate.
You won.
Ed Sheeran won.
Ed Sheeran won.
Sheeran.
No, but I think he got frustrated. In other words, I think he said he's reached a point where he's almost afraid to write. That
Well, no, he says he's recording live whenever he's composing, so that there's no. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm thinking is that people now seem to be quite confident to go and attempt to. It's all about the money anyway, but they're garnering to try. It was sort of an attempt to get to challenge. You have to have some sort of sense of confidence that you can win. If you look at like Who Let the Dogs Out, I mean that's an iconic tune now. I mean I've lived in Australia, I've been in New Zealand, I hear it all over the place. It comes from Trinidad, right? So would the person who composes that or would they be getting all the rights for that?
all right. All right. Let me give you a quick synopsis of it. Now, a lot of people think that the song was stolen. It was not. The Baha Men version was not stolen. Anselm Douglas is the one who wrote the song initially. Full stop. How I got involved in the case was, I was the producer had first refusal rights to the song. I was the first person to hear the song in its demo raw version. And I'm the one who advised them that it wasn't for this market to go outside in North America, because when I heard the song as a producer, it instantly hit me as a North American kind of hook. So I sent him out there to do it and did something else for him that year. Even though he did it in soca at the point in time, but it kind of caught a little bit in North America. And his publisher, publishers, two Jewish brothers out in New York, picked it up, and they had the artist, the Baha Men, who were under contract with them, and they matched this song to the artist because they loved the song as a novel, and they found that the Baha Men would have been the ideal vehicle to take this novel song to the market, and that's how it eventually worked out. Bahaman actually didn't even want to do the song. So the sample of Who was the actual, no. It was the
Demo?
publisher
Okay.
who actually was in the studio and do it. Because the guys thought, hey, you're going to make us look like a fool going to the studio and ball, who, we're no dogs, right? That was, the producer heard this, you know what I mean, as a hit. Anyway, but where the problem happened is when the hip hop group used the sample from the North American version, right? So there are a lot of different intricacies. And then further to that afterwards, when I heard the song, Anselm Douglas was still on the publishing contract with Amar Studios. So it was being pulled 3, 4, 5 different ways. And I was the one stuck in the middle of everything. So I was legally interviewed by this one and that one and that one and deposition here and there and there. So I was in the middle of it. But it was a nice case example. But in today's world now, you just have to be brave, like I say, be brave, constantly check, work with your lawyer.
The right
always,
kind.
The right kind of lawyer, entertainment lawyer, copyright. And, just be careful. But if sometimes it happens, if you are accidentally caught then, because you never went with malintention, and something lines up, just accept it. Don't fight it. Because the more you fight it, the deeper it goes into your pocket once you lose. Once you start off amicably, and they realize it was something accidental, you won't be that hurt.
All right. So our timekeeper has given us time. Can I? Yeah. So we'll probably have a chat afterward. There's a question there, just wanting to know. Can we accommodate him? Very quickly, very short.
I was because of very hungry. So, if I was to decide to sample Sting, right? Sting Sunya for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Like the sun comes up tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. Is he entitled to what the song does not generate, or only what the song generates?
He's entitled to the damages of what it would have generated. It also entitled to how it damages his brand, and anything else he wants on top of that. And what most probably the lawyer will go into is find out your value and maybe multiply that by 100 times to make sure that you never surface again.
And 3 generations down.
Yeah.
On the what he now said, sample thing decided what goes on. I think maybe like the repercussion, like I say, doesn't damage his brand. Yeah, because the song might actually do well and it might accumulate money from it, at either 3 or 4. If it damages his brand, then he might say, you go and take my nice thing, someone was singing, you sing all kind of funny thing with it or whatever. That damages my brand.
Moral rights.
Yeah, moral rights. Right? So you say damage his brand, maybe that's the I'm just asking now, if you use it for promotion and use, and you don't publish the song, you don't distribute the song, and that's asking.
No, you have no rights to do that.
You have
You
no
have no
rights.
rights to do that.
Unless it falls into fair use or fair dealing, and we really do need to wrap up. Unless it falls into fair use or fair dealing, you don't have a defense if you use somebody's property without asking their permission. It comes like, you see my car, you like it, you decide you're going to get in and take a drive. And then maybe you decide, oh, I have this guy with a shop, so maybe I'll go and print it in a different color, but I'll maybe just leave this little piece that's from the original thing, and you come and you sell it back to me. That's basically what sampling somebody's work and putting it back out, that's what you're doing.
With that understanding, which the worst thing that happens if I sample thing, put it out there and
We'll take
Yeah, you and your generations lose everything. You and generations after you
Your
could
children
lose
and
everything.
grandchildren. Yeah.
Like all your financials, whatever. For any use that is not consented. Yeah, consensual. Okay, so as we wrap, I want to just remind us that it is always, hi, I'm speaking. Hello, I still have the mic, thank you. Right. I just want to say that as we wrap, we want to remember that we always want to remember it's a balance between the artistic expression and respect for copyright laws and intellectual property rights. It's your asset. Treat it as such. Guard it with the same energy that you guard your house, your car, and any other piece of property that you value. Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you very much to... Okay.
Just to give especially young producers some advice. When I first started to speak, I remember I asked, what would you want to sample? What's the reason you're sampling for? There are different platforms now that are sample-based, either one-shot or loop samples. So if you are thinking of sampling something, try to find it in one of those platforms that you can actually pay for. It's extremely cheap, extremely cheap. And that way it's royalty-free. You have no repercussions or nothing to do with that.
That's a great tip. Pay attention to what comes out in the public domain. Pay attention to that. There's a lot of stuff floating in the public domain that, is good stuff. Yeah? Do like Disney did. Make money off of the free things. Thank you.
Yeah.